So going back to social media, let's talk a little bit about you growing your page as an influencer. When you say, getting really clear on your mission and knowing your why, get into that a little bit about your social media. Tell us kind of about your why, your mission there.
So it kind of goes back to why I care so much about mentorship is when I was 18 years old and I knew I wanted to be in the Marine Corps. I wanted to be a Marine Corps officer. When I looked around at where I was at the time at the Naval Academy, there were very few women Marines around. So I just didn't have somebody to connect with or talk to. And so I realized and that was kind of when social media was at the, very beginning. I think I made my Instagram in 2012, and that's not taking pictures of my Chinese food or whatever, didn't have any idea what it was or how to use it. So then fast forwarding to when I was with my students and I realized I am the only Marine officer who's a woman at this school. And I have an opportunity to influence. There's 250 students that go to that school. And I have an opportunity to be that face of the Marine Corps to these kids. Literally, they have no other reference. They've never interacted with any other Marine. So being okay, how can I be the face to people that I may never meet? So that's when I started sharing my story on social media and, showing my true authentic self, which is again a controversial thing in the military. We're kind of behind in that where, I get it. There's a purpose to wanting to be serious and emotionless sometimes, but I truly believe that I'm not an effective leader when I'm trying to be somebody I'm not. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to be myself and show the world or whoever wants to follow me that you can be yourself and be an effective leader. So that's when I started talking about that, because when I was, a young lieutenant, there was no female captain or major in the Marine Corps that I could follow and be like, oh my gosh, this could be me. There was just a gap. And that's why a gap that I wanted to fill.
That's awesome. I love that you not only did that because you didn't experience that yourself, but you saw that there are so many people out there who had a need and you decided to step up and fill that. That's great.
I was going to say last week at that symposium, because, there's about 200 Marines. There's 900 total female service members, about 250 female Marines. And the number of Marines that came up to me that said, I follow you on Instagram. You have, made such an impact on my life. Whatever. I was so stunned and taken aback by that number. Because those are people that I never would have met otherwise. There were even some that came up to me and said, I requested a mentor from you and you gave me mentors. And thank you so much. That has changed my career path. So having that kind of reinforcement and being because sometimes you never know the impact you're making. I'll likely of the, 600 mentors that I've provided, I will not meet those people. So I don't know if they're actually benefiting or not, but to actually have someone come up to me and thank me and say, you have impacted my life. That is just from being on social media. That is so rewarding.
Absolutely. That's incredible. And I like what you said that, you saw a need and you brought it to social media because there's power in social media. Obviously, there are negatives for sure, but when used well, there's such power there to be able to reach people that you would not have reached before. Even in a local area, utilizing social media, you're going to be able to connect with and make an impact on so many more people because that's where the attention is. People are spending a lot of time on social media, whether they're engaging or not. People are spending a lot of time there. So you've been able to meet so many more people that way and reach so many more people and have such a ripple effective impact. That's very cool. I love that you had people coming up to you that you had never met or didn't know their names that said that they had gotten a mentor from you. That's very cool.
And you keep saying the importance of, connecting with people. And I think that is, we need to go back and remember what that word even means. People don't want to see, I think we're past the point, especially this younger generation, we're past the point of wanting to see the perfect photo and the perfect whatever. Like, we know now that that's just not real and that's not realistic. People, we're craving authenticity and we're craving that connection. And part of that is showing the failures that we have been through, the lessons that we've learned. Like, life isn't perfect all the time. And I think that's how you achieve true connections with people, is by being vulnerable and transparent about your life. And then they, connect with that and relate to that. That's how I've seen like my success with my social media, is I try to talk about those issues that people don't want to talk about, like failures and times I've struggled or doubted myself. But that's what people need to hear, so that they feel like, okay, I can overcome. Also, I can be resilient.
Sure. That's awesome. Well, I know it's not all about the followers, but which platform do you utilize the most in kind of growing your audience, and how many followers do you have on that particular platform?
I am strictly on Instagram because I'm a one woman show with my social media, and I try to balance my life with it, and I'm still working on that. So I've just maintaining one social media platform is all that I can do. I tried TikTok, but I couldn't. I just couldn't get into that one. Right now, I'm at over 90,000 followers.
Cool. So I like what you said, that you are sticking with Instagram, and it's obvious that you're going deep there. How important would you say is like being consistent there in terms of like growing your following? How important is consistency?
So it depends on what stage you're at in developing your social media presence. So I do social media consultations for people who are also interested in growing and starting. So it depends on where your knowledge of the platform, first of all, and there's a lot of factors. But what I always say in terms of starting is consistency is super important. So I would say it's more of the quantity versus quality right at the very beginning, because you just want to get like your footprint out there. So, and right now, and sometimes you don't really know what your audience is, so you're still refining that. And I say, hey, it's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Like, sometimes you just got to try something funny, something more serious, something, and just Monday, Wednesday, Friday, do a different post of each of those different categories. And then after a month, let's look at what did well and what didn't. So then after a certain point, then you want to switch over to the quality versus quantity. And that's when you've kind of narrowed down on okay, this is my brand, this is my audience, this is what I want to talk about. But it takes a little bit of time to kind of figure that out based off of what is received well and not. So that's kind of what I recommend to people. And then also, I think it's important to remember, hey, am I having fun? Like, social media should be fun. It shouldn't be like a huge chore. Like, I'm not miserable. And if I find myself being miserable as I'm making a post, or I'm just spending so much time on it, then I take a step back and say, you know what? I never started this social media with an intention of like growing this business necessarily. It's become one on its own. But if I find myself just getting like kind of bogged down, then I take a step back and say, okay, like, let me go back to the original purpose of this. It's to spread positivity. It's to make positive change. It's to help people. So I think keeping that in the back of our minds is also important, because people make it not fun and it should be fun. And also, I have realized that the content that you spend the least amount of time on a lot of times does the best, because again, people want that authentic post, like the in the moment. They don't want the the professional, perfect photographed, angled lighting. Who cares? There's a mix of both, I think, is important. But I really realized sometimes I'll post a reel that I spent one whole minute on, and it does really well. So there's a lot of factors, but yes, that's what I would say.
Yeah, I think making sure that you're having fun with your content is absolutely vital. We tell people all the time, if you're kind of bored making your content, guess what? Your audience is going to be bored too. No one is going to be interested in that. You're going to get low engagement and you're going to burn out really quickly. So making sure that your content is relatable, making sure that it's educational, making sure that it's going to be valuable. I like what you said about looking over after a month of just consistency, of looking over what you've put out to see what you're getting back, the engagement, to see kind of who you're reaching and how it's performing. how often would you say you are, maybe in your whole journey, but even now that you've grown this large following, how often are you kind of looking over those analytics, kind of paying attention to engagement, that sort of thing?
Now, about maybe like once a month or so, I sort of have figured out my personal strategy for my Instagram, where I kind of have to maintain this balance. And it's all, I call it like a pendulum, where on one side I want to post something funny with trending audio because I know it'll do well with the algorithm. It's a whole like art and science aspect of social media. So on one side I'll be like funny, lighthearted, whatever, goofy side. And that is what usually will go viral or get a lot of engagement, positive and negative feedback. So I'm prepared for the people that don't like that side. And then that is what gets like the followers and increases engagement. And then I'm like, okay, now I have people's attention. So now I'm going to move the pendulum to the other side. And now I'm going to post something educational, inspirational, motivational, more of that side, which is more boring. But now that's what I really want people to see. So the little dancing videos and like, lip syncing videos are really more so to just show like, hey, I'm fun. I'm a normal like human outside of being a Marine. But also once I get their attention through that, then I'm like, okay, but actually this is mentorship or whatever other purpose I'm trying to, achieve.